ago, somebody with a limb had a stroke. And what happens now if you have a stroke, some people can move. Some people lose the koyach habib, they lose the koyach to be able to speak. So the Shiloh was a therapist who teaches people how to get back their koyach habib. They wanted to know, could she teach, it was a man who had the stroke, teach him how to make brachas. I was an older person, but he forgot how to make brachas. Part of the problem is in the mental ability to making the brachas. He forgot how to make the brachas. But part of it, he also needed training in how to say out the words. So is it a mutter for somebody, in this case, it happened with a Goyish therapist, it was a Schwarzer lady, but let's assume the case would be a Yiddish therapist to teach another Yid how to make brachas. Now, in order to have therapy, you can't say Baruch Atah Hashem, because the person can say Baruch Atah Hashem. He's not going to learn how to make the bracha properly. So is it going to be mutter to teach a bracha by saying the name of Hashem? Now this question is not only again in the case of giving somebody that has a stroke, but you meet somebody who never went to yeshiva. It's about tshuva. It says, teach me how to make brachas. It's a mutter to teach somebody how to make brachas, even if you're going to say the Shem Hashem.
What about chinuch?
No,
100%. Like, you have to teach kids, you have to teach, so you have to teach. What do you do?
So we're talking about kids.
The reason why he's a rabbi and you're not.
About mitzvah when they're preparing. So how do you teach them how to make the bracha on the haftarah? So you teach them how to make the brachas on the haftarah. So you say with the niggun, Baruch Atah Hashem, or you say out with Hashem's name. Usually if you teach the mitzvah Baruch Atah Hashem, you end up saying Baruch Atah Hashem, and until you set them straight to say Baruch Atah and say out Hashem's name, it takes a few tries. So it's a mutter when you're teaching him how to lane. So to say the psukim is no problem, but to make the brachas is initial bracha batala to say out Hashem's name. The same thing, like you bring up for a Rebbe to teach kids, it usually comes before Simchas Torah, is a mutter to teach the kids, and the Rebbe should say out the bracha, the full bracha. Or you're not allowed to do it because it's a shayla bracha batala. That's the question we'll talk about. The Gemara says, in Masechtas Rosh Hashanah, the Mishnah in Daf Chavtes, it says in the Mishnah, Zeh HaKal, Kol she'eni mechuyev b'davar, eini moitzi es harav midei chayvasa. If somebody's not mechuyev in a mitzvah, he can't be moitzi somebody else. In other words, in order to be moitzi someone else in a mitzvah, you have to be mechuyev b'davar. The Mishnah says if a person's a chayr shoyt b'katan, somebody who's not mechuyev b'davar, he can't be moitzi somebody else with the bracha. He can't make the bracha of somebody else to be moitzi him. The Gemara says, Toni Ava Breided Abzeira, Kol HaBracha is Kulon, Ava Bisha Yotze Moitzi, Chotz Mi Brichas Halech and Brichas Hayayim. All Brichas HaMitzvah, if you're ready Yotze Mitzvah, you're ready Shukalulav, you're ready Lane the Megillah, whatever the mitzvah is that we're talking about, even if you were ready Yotze the mitzvah, you could be moitzi somebody else with the bracha. But the Gemara says, Chutz Mi Brichas Halechem and Brichas Hayayim. But the Gemara says, She'im Lo Yotze, if you weren't Yotze the bracha yet, that means I want to eat something, and I want to be moitzi you also want to eat. So of course I can be moitzi you. But on the Birchas HaNenim, if you want to make a bracha for somebody else, if you already Yotze, so the Gemara says, it's different than Birchas HaMitzvahs. And the halacha is, Im Yotze Eini Moitzi. If you're already Yotze, that means you already made a bracha, shahakal on your orange juice. And you want to, your friend doesn't know how to make the bracha, or you don't want to make the bracha, and you want to make the bracha for him. So it's chalak, it's different than Birchas HaMitzvah and Birchas HaNenim. Or Birchas HaMitzvah, the halacha is, the Gemara says, that even if you're already Yotze the mitzvah, you can make the bracha for your friend. But if it's a Birchas HaNenim, then if you need the bracha for yourself, so it's not a bracha at all, because you need it for yourself, you can be moitzi the other person. But if it's a bracha that Birchas HaNenim, and you already Yotze, then you cannot be moitzi. That's what it says in the Gemara. So Rashi explains what's the difference between a Birchas HaNenim and a Birchas HaMitzvah. That Birchas HaNenim, a Shachim Yebikori, whatever all the bracha is, you cannot be moitzi your friend if you don't need the bracha for yourself. But if it's a Birchas HaMitzvah, if you want to little shoy for somebody, and you want to make the bracha for him, or any other Birchas HaMitzvah, even if you already Yotze the mitzvah, the halacha is that you're allowed to make the bracha. And what's the difference? So Rashi says, Al Bisha Yotze Moitzi, by Birchas HaMitzvah, Shei Kol Yisrael Areven Zel Zeh, the mitzvahs. There's a mitzvah of Arvus, Kol Yisrael Areven Zel Zeh. So on the Birchas HaMitzvah, even if you already Yotze the mitzvah, you can make the bracha for somebody else, because Rashi says, Kol Yisrael Eiv Zav. I have a responsibility that you should also do the mitzvah. But a birchas hanenin, so Rashi says, why can't I be moitzi you with a birchas hanenin? That means if you already yotze the mitzvah, why can't I be moitzi you? So Rashi says, she'ein choyva, you don't have to eat. El she'asin hanas min el hazeh bracha. Ubezu in kan arvus, she'ein choyva al adam, choyvas hanin lo. So Rashi says, on a birchas hanenin, so you don't have to eat, so don't eat, and you won't be moitzi. So on a birchas hamitzvah, Rashi says, is arvus. So you can make the bracha for that person. But a birchas hanenin, since the person doesn't have to eat, you don't have, since he doesn't have to eat at this time, so you cannot be moitzi that person if you don't need the bracha for yourself. Why? Because of arvus. In the Rishonim over here on this Gemara, they explain what's the concept of arvus. How does arvus work that I can make the bracha even though I don't need the bracha for myself? So the Ram says in this Gemara, and the Ritva says in this Gemara, they say that so you do the Lashon of the Ritva is that Kulam ki guf echad u'ka'arv ha'parei choyv chavei. The concept of arvus makes all Yidden together Kulam ki guf echad. We're like one person. And the same way, if you have a co-signer on a loan, he pays up if the guy can't pay up. So too, the concept of arvus is that we're all like one person that I could make the bracha for you. I was yotze the mitzvah already. How do I make the bracha for you? I already was yotze the mitzvah. So the answer is, there's something missing in me as long as you're not yotze. Since I have a responsibility to make sure that you do the mitzvahs also. So as long as you don't do the mitzvah, it's considered like I'm also mechuyev in the mitzvah. Because we're all like one. So maybe I can make the bracha for you. The Lashon of the Ritva is, the keven shel yotze chavei ki misha lo yotze hu dami. So the concept of arvus, the way it works, is it says that I'm missing in the mitzvah as long as you didn't do it. So therefore I can now go make the bracha for the mitzvah. We're saying, but on birchas hanenin, since you don't have to do it, you don't have to eat, you don't have to drink, so it's not considered that you're mechuyev, so it does not make it that I'm mechuyev to make sure that you do that mitzvah of making the bracha. That's what comes out from the Gemara. Now, where do we know this concept of arvus from? Anybody know? Where do we know that one Yid is responsible for his friend? Where it says where it's a pasuk. Where does it say it in the Torah? It's a concept that we all know. Where? Some say like that. So if you look around in the Rishonim, in the Joshim, there's many different Mekayos. In the Gemara, in Masechta Shavuos, and Masechta Sanhedrin, the Gemara reads a pasuk in the Teichach and Parashat B'chukoisai. The Koshlu Ish Ba'achiv, the Gemara dashins, was me the Koshlu Ish Ba'achiv, that person's going to trample on his brother. So the Gemara says, Ish Ba'avoin Achiv, the Lamed Shekol Yisrael Reim Zel Zeh. Right now, they have a responsibility. The Gemara learns that from this pasuk. Rashi and Chumash in Parashas Tzavim says that the Makar of arvus is from Atam Nitzov Hayom Kulchem, and the end of the pasuk says Kol Yisrael. Rashi speaks that over there, that the reason why there's the dots on the word Hanestoris is that this responsibility of arvus that we're mechuyev for each other only happened after they went to Yisrael. It wasn't like that in the Midbar. Other Rishonim learn out. There's a pasuk in Vayikra. There's the Nefesh Kisechta. This concept, Nefesh and Klal Yisrael, is like one Nefesh. So you see this idea that we're all like one. This concept of arvus, and like we're saying, the concept of arvus only applies by mitzvahs, not by birchas hanenin. And like we said, the idea of arvus makes it that you consider like you're mechuyev in somebody else's mitzvah. I also heard a shir from Rabbi Belsky. So he had a shaila, he wanted to know if somebody's traveling on the highway and he sees his friend has a flat tire, is he mechuyev to stop to help him out? So that was the question that they asked Rabbi Belsky. So he said, I'll tell you a story. It happened. He's talking about it. It happened with me. He said I was traveling up today from Flatbush to the mountains, and I saw there was a Yid that had a flat tire. It was very hot. He said, I don't know how to change flat tires. I was right before the toll. So he says, it made more sense. This was before the cell phone days. I'll tell the toll booth to radio for help, than pulling over and trying to help him. I can't do anything anyway. So he says, as he was inching up to the toll booth, Schwarz rolls down his window next to him, and he says, you didn't stop for your brother. So he says, oh, unbelievable thing for me. And then he went on past the thing. He says, the way every guy looks at us, they even understand it. That all Jews, they're infinite each other, they're mamish like brothers, they're like one. So that was his limud that he took out from the story. But the idea that Klal Yisrael Rebbe Zeh makes it that we have a chiyuv to make sure that our friend does the mitzvah. In Shulchan Aruch, it says in Siman Kuf Tezayin, Kuf Samach Zayin, when it talks about this halacha, so Mechaber says, Misha Eini Oichel. If somebody's not eating, if I'm not eating, I can't make a bracha to be moitzi you. There's a difference between a gadol and a katan. This really comes from the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah. That for a gadol, if you're not being mekayim the mitzvah for the bracha for yourself, because you're not eating, you cannot make the bracha for somebody else. But for katanim, since you have a mitzvah to mechanech and teach them about brachas, and you see there's a katan, he doesn't want to make the bracha, you can make the bracha for him. So the Mishabur says, says all birchas hanenin you cannot make for somebody else, and he explains like we just said before. Shekol Yisrael Rebbe Zeh B'Zeh, Harei Lo Yati Dei HaMitzvah, Harei Hu Ki'ilu Lo Yati. He says by birchas HaMitzvah, the idea is that as long as your friend didn't do the mitzvah, it's like you didn't do the mitzvah, and that's why you could be moitzim. He says Mashenk birchas hanenin, Af Mishehem Choyv Al Hanenin Levarich, Mikol Makom. So the Mechaber paskins lahalacha that you cannot make a bracha to someone else if you're not eating. So again, if you're eating, you could be maitzim, because then it's not a bracha at all, because you're making the bracha for yourself. But if you're not eating, and your friend who's a gadol wants to eat, and he doesn't want to make a bracha, then you cannot make a bracha for him. I remember back in the days of yeshiva, we used to have all English teachers that were in front. They used to want us to buy them things to eat, to drink. So as a Yeshiva Bach, we want to know, could we give it to them? Shaila, give somebody something to eat, to drink, if they're not going to make a bracha. So we had one teacher, he says, I'll into Alma, you make the bracha for me.
I wouldn't think that that's the wrong thing to do. I would think that you're actually not even going to gift.
They were all fried, they were all fried.
You said they weren't
from. They
weren't from. Why they said they weren't Jewish?
No, they weren't from. They were all. Okay. They were fried. They weren't from. And when we make a fast, now we can't. We don't know about how to deal with the question. Well, you make the bracha for me. I'll answer on it. So la halacha, at least without taking everything else into consideration, you would not be able to make the bracha for him, because if you're not eating, then you can't make the bracha for him just to be moitzi. Because, like we're learning over here, for another gadol, in order to be moitzi someone else, you have to be eating. If not, you can't make the bracha.
But you fall in the same category as chinuch, because they say the reason why you're allowed to do it when it's by chinuch is because because he doesn't know. By gadol, if he doesn't know, then you should still be able to.
It's a very good question. The Gemara is muvur that on a gadol, we don't have this concept of chinuch. We're going to see in teaching there's going to be a chiluk between making the bracha for or making the bracha with him, based on what you're saying. We'll get back to what you're saying. That just to make the bracha for him, that is a mitzvah of chinuch, that is a mitzvah on me to be mechanech him on a gadol, there's no mitzvah chinuch. But maybe there's still a mitzvah to teach him. We're going to see that there's going to be such a differentiation. So far what we're talking about is where the gadol or the katan is not making the bracha. You want to be moitzi him with the bracha. So to be moitzi him with the bracha, if they're not going to say it, you can't do that unless you need the bracha for yourself.
Why can't you do it? Because there's no arbus in here?
Right, so we're saying that on the bracha of Hanal, there's no arbus. On a bracha of a mitzvah, then you'll be able to make it, because as long as you don't do the mitzvah, then the mitzvah is like it's on me and I can be moitzi. But on a bracha of Hanal, since you don't have to eat, so it's not a mitzvah on me to make sure that
it might not be arbus for the actual bracha, but it should be arbus for the. If he does make the bracha, then he's doing it.
Right. So why is there?
It should be arbus for that.
It's a very good question. I don't have a good answer to that question. I looked around in all the Achraim, and they would want to be Medai Grash. If I want to talk about it afterwards, I'll tell you what they attempt to answer. Why you want the arbus on the Aveira of eating without a bracha? That's what you're asking. It's a very good question. I don't have a good answer. It falls a little bit low. It's like that. So we're coming out that to be moitzi, again, I just want to be very clear, to be moitzi somebody else where he's not saying anything. He's just going to be quiet. Just to be moitzi him. If it's a mitzvah, you could do it. if it's a bracha and you're not eating, you can't do it. But what's with our original question where I want to teach somebody else how to do it, and he's going to say along with me, could I teach him how to make the brachas? So the Mechaber says in Siman Reish Tes Vav, Chaba's bringing down a Gemara and says his brachas, that really the halachos over here are talking about a different topic. It's talking about how to answer amen on certain brachas. That if a child makes a bracha and he doesn't know about the bracha. So the Mechaber says, this that you can't answer amen on a bracha that a child makes is dafka b'shah shaloymir ha-brachas lefnei rabbi. If you have a kid who's learning how to make brachas and he's not making the bracha to make the bracha, so you don't answer amen. If a kid's making a bracha who's learning how to make brachas, but he's not making the bracha to make the bracha on what he's eating or on the mitzvah that he's doing, then you don't answer amen. And the Mechaber sticks in, shemoter v'lamed l'tinoikes ha-brachas ketikna. You're allowed to teach children to make brachas. V'afal b'shem b'bracha bracha levatala. Even though when you're teaching them the bracha is a bracha levatala, you're not eating that, you're not checking the lulav now, whatever bracha you're teaching them, even though it's a bracha levatala, still, since you're doing it to teach them how to make brachas, it's mutter, shas alimut. But then the Mechaber says, I will show shem mevarchen lifter es atzman. Let's say you're teaching a kid how to make a bracha, and the kid is eating if he says shachal niyah b'dvar, or you teach him how to shake a lulav and you tell him what the bracha to make, and he's doing the mitzvah. Then the Mechaber says you could answer amen to that bracha. In other words, you can only answer amen on a bracha that has the halacha of a bracha, but only has the halacha of a bracha if he's doing it to be mekayim the mitzvah or he's doing it to eat. But if you're only doing it and he's only saying the bracha because you're teaching him, even though you're allowed to teach him, you're allowed to say the bracha with the Shem Hashem, the halacha is that it's not a bracha levatala, but you don't answer amen in that bracha. So the Mishnah Berurah says, when he's coming to explain why you're allowed to teach a kid how to make a bracha, why is it not a bracha levatala? So Mishnah Berurah says, you're teaching him the brachas shlev zman. It's not a time that he's doing the mitzvah, it's not a time that he's eating. Still, why are you allowed to make the bracha with him and teach him how to do it? Why is the Rebbe allowed to do it? Whoever's teaching him, why is the child allowed to do it? You're allowed to do it, you're allowed to say the Shem Hashem. Even the Rebbe is allowed to say the Shem out. They allow it in order to teach him. Now why? What's the hatis? Mishnah Berurah says, you have to teach them. If you're not going to teach them how to make brachas and how to say it, then they're never going to learn. If you teach them Baruch Atah Hashem, they're not going to know how to say it, what to do. So in order to teach them how to do it, like Mishnah Berurah says, what are we learning out this mitzvah from? From this pasuk, we learn now that there's a mitzvah to teach, how to learn Torah, how to do mitzvahs, and included in that mitzvah of to teach Torah and to do mitzvahs, we learn out from here that you're allowed to teach a child how to make a bracha, even though you're saying the Shem Hashem. Why? Because since the Rebbe is getting the mitzvah of Limadim, so for him it's not a bracha of Atala, because he's getting the mitzvah of teaching Torah and how to do the mitzvah. And the child is allowed to do it because he has to know how to do it. So he's learning how to do it. So the Rebbe is allowed to teach, and the child is allowed to say along with him to learn the bracha.
Father also?
The father also. So the Moshe...
But if you're paying the Rebbe to do it anyways, and he's doing it with Kaimai, so then if you're just extra, maybe you're getting him to learn it better. I don't know if you're the necessity for to teach him how to learn the bracha.
Better, as long as it's being done with the kavanah of teaching.
Then it'll be chal.
Then it'll be chal. Get that, I'm going to speak about more right now.
There's no mitzvah for teaching God.
I'm going to get right now.
Get it.
So again, in the halacha, it only talks about teaching a katan. And like I'm reading, in Shulchan Aruch, you're not going to find that it's mutter to teach a katan. Comes along the Moshe Feinstein, and he says, what's the reason that it's mutter to teach the tinnik? Why allowed to teach the kid? So I just read you, it says in Mishnah Berurah, was the mitzvah of limatim oiz mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to teach. And if you're not going to teach them, they're not going to know how to do it. So that's enough to make it that it's not a bracha levatol. So Moshe says, if you have a gadol, he never went to yeshiva, or for whatever reason he needs somebody to help him, to teach him how to make brachas, he says, what should be the difference between a gadol and a katan? The same way it's not considered a bracha levatol, because you're teaching the katan and getting the mitzvah, and it's not called a batala because you're doing it for the matam oisim, which is a mitzvah to teach the kid or the talmud who doesn't know how to do it. So Moshe says, what should be the difference between the kid and the gadol that doesn't know how to do it? As long as it's being done because it's being done to teach, then it will be mutter. And Moshe says there's no difference between a gadol and a katan. And Shabrua, if you look at all of them, it's the first, like the Moshe is saying, that there's no difference between a gadol and a katan. It's not considered a bracha levatala if you're doing it in order to teach, because you're being mekayim this mitzvah, and it's not called levatala.
So the pasuk is not just Nechem or your son.
So the Gemara learns that from Benechem. Benechem means Talmud. So when it says Benechem, it doesn't dafka mean your child. It means your Talmud. So if you know somebody who doesn't know how to make a bracha, so in that nekuda, in that point, he'll be your Talmud. You're teaching him how to make it. You know, what we're learning after is that teaching is not considered levatala because you're getting this mitzvah. So the halacha, everyone says like a Moshe, even the early Achrayim never like a Moshe says, that if you're doing it to teach, there's no issue of bracha levatala. Now there's one case where a gadol cannot, the Shabru speaks that from the Magen Avraham, cannot make the bracha. So let's say you're learning the Gemara. The Misatz's bracha says on an apple you make a boy creates. So you can't say when you're learning the Gemara on an apple on Berchas Elon you make boy creates because then it's a bracha levatala. Even though you're learning, but to make a bracha when you're learning and you know already how to make brachas, then you cannot make the bracha. That's in the Shabru Paskins. Right after hold, if you're learning, you cannot make the bracha that it says in the Gemara. But if you're teaching somebody else how to do it, then you could yes make the bracha. So back to the case that we started with originally. The first case is that some had a stroke, and they need somebody to teach them how to get back their power of speaking, and they forgot how to make the brachas. Are you allowed to teach them? So based on this Psak of Moshe, that when the Mechaber says you're allowed to teach Ketanim, it's lav daf Ketanim, it's even Gedolim. So this gadol, the only way he's going to get back his power to speech is through the therapy. So it would be mutter for another gadol to teach him how to make brachas, to bring back, first of all, his koyach to speak, and that he should be fluent and be able to have the power of speaking to make the bracha.
Is it better to not make it into a bracha? The only issue is Moisei the Shem Hashem. Like to be mafsi, say Baruch Atah, you make a break, and then you say, now you say Adoi, we're only saying out the Shem Hashem, we're not making complete bracha.
It seems that if you don't teach exactly the way they have to do it, especially as in this with therapy, they're only going to be able to know how to do it.
Okay, but if I'm saying there has to be a chiluk in a gadol and a katan, the gadol maybe can't stop that. The gadol can stop when you talk to him. Like I'm going to tell you now.
Yes, I guess it will depend on.
So, but is it worse to say a complete bracha levatala rather than say just the Shem Hashem?
No, it makes it better because a bracha levatala, if you're doing it to thank Hashem, might even be better. I mean, the rest of the that's a big shot. If you're making a bracha to thank Hashem, but it was a case that you didn't need the bracha. It's not so clear that the chlor bracha levatala might. The shot how much levatala it is, but just to say Hashem's name.
You said it's not levatala. Who cares how you want to teach the guy? It's not levatala if you teach.
If you're doing it for teaching, so if we go back to the case, it's a very big by mitzvah boys. When you're teaching them, and you want to teach them the bracha, it comes mostly by the haftarah, or even when they get Gedalya Baruch Hashem on the and you start making the bracha. So if you're going to teach them Baruch Atah Hashem, and they should say Hashem, most of the time they're going to end up saying Hashem, and that's Hashem. So I asked, my father was there before Shan, I asked him, give them a siddur. When you teach them, let them just say the words in the siddur. Why? Who said that that's called to teach? Maybe it's not necessary to be taught by saying Hashem. Tell them, follow and read like you read. He said, will you ever buy it on mitzvah? He said, you know how many times it's buy it on mitzvah? He said, most of the time, if they're taught to say Baruch Atah Hashem without saying Hashem's name, they're not going to say it out. It's going to take 5, 6 tries till you get them exactly how to say it, or the nerd, whatever it is. So part of teaching them that they should say it right, he said it's possible, even though technically they say read, they know how to read, it's still considered part of this mitzvah chinuch of teaching them how to make brachas, or in that case teaching them the nusach, that will be mutter to teach the kid, the bar mitzvah boy, and for sure the boys in yeshiva that are learning in first grade, second grade, again Aliyah and Simchas Torah, the Rebbe will be mutter to teach them how to make the bracha with the Rebbe saying the Shem Hashem. It's possible.
Would it help to divide up the word?
No, there's a difference.
No, you don't have to.
Once you teach, you teach. You do it a different way.
How many times?
Different way it works.
It has to be clear. You can do it like 20 times.
Till he gets it. As long as it's being done for the mitzvah chinuch to teach it, and that's what we're saying. Even by a government, it's like that. that till he gets it, because it's not levatol, you're doing it for learning. So again, what we're coming at is that to make a bracha for someone else, that was the first thing to say, to make a bracha for someone else, if he's not going to say along with you, that you cannot do unless you yourself need that bracha. But if you're saying the bracha with somebody else to teach him how to do it, even if he's not eating that, then it will be mutter, because the halacha is, it will be mutter to teach somebody else how to make the bracha. Now this halacha, it says in the first, what I'm saying, in the halacha in Hilchos Pesach. Usually most people don't learn it, it's not so negeh. There's a sin in Shulchan Aruch with one halacha, the person that doesn't know how to make a seder. Sin Tov Pei Dal, all it talks about is the guy doesn't know how to make a seder and other people are helping him out. So it says over there in the Mechaber that if somebody doesn't know how to bench, and it's seder night, and he doesn't know how to bench, so is somebody else allowed to bench with him for him? So Mechaber says, you're allowed to bench. I already made my seder. I go to my next door neighbor, he doesn't know how to do it. Mechaber says, you're allowed to bench with him, and he can say along with you, mila b'mila, even though you're ready yotze. So the Mishnah Berurah says over there, why are you allowed to do that?
It's closer already.
Yeah. He said, even though you were yotze already, and benching is like a birchas hanenes, so he says this idea that we're saying. The lashon is of the Mechaber. Mechaber says,
First one's there, right?
in Siman Tov Pei Dalet, the lashon of the Mechaber is, Misha lo yada levarach birchas hamazon, yikra achi imei mila b'mila. So the Mishnah Berurah says, why does it not? Because lo yada time is lo levarach.
But you don't have that option as an issue.
So eventually, since it's on Hanol, the Rishonim say that it's treated like birchas hanenes. The child had to do that. Again, it's given. Even though right now you're ready in the because you already ate. Some Rishonim say the reason is because if it says the Chalta Savata, you have to eat in order to bench. There's different reasons in Rishonim why Chazal gave by birchas hamazon the same halacha like every birchas hanenes. So Mishnah Berurah says over there, the kol shekoyre mila b'mila imoy, and the other person's ha'af is oini imoy, lo yahavi bracha levatol, af b'shiyatz mikvah. As long as he's saying along and you're teaching him how to do it, it's not a bracha levatol, even though you're ready yotze. And halacha is, we said, if you're ready yotze by birchas hanenes, it doesn't work. But since he's saying along with you, it's mutter, darehu rak melamdoi levarach. And since the halacha is melamdoi to teach is mutter, it will be mutter. And Mishnah Berurah says in Sha'ar Tzin, it says, the halacha we said earlier says, the Gedolim, you're not allowed to make brachas for them. So Mishnah Berurah says, hasamai she'oime avurim levarach. Mishnah Berurah in Sha'ar Tzin, Mamash says it's chilek. If you're making the bracha for him, then it doesn't work. Why? Because on the birchas hanenes you can't make the bracha for him. But if you're teaching him how to make the bracha, and he's saying along the bracha with you, then you could, yes, teach him how to make the bracha. I just want to end off with one interesting Gemara, based a little bit has to do with this. The Gemara says in Masechtas Kesubos that Rebbe, Yehuda Anasi, the Rebbe HaKodesh, however you know him, at the time that he was Shas Misa, he said, called together his family. And the Gemara says that he told his children when they came that make sure you have the table set every week, every Erev Shabbos, table set, candles on, chalas on the table. So it says in the Gemara, Masechtas Kesubos, you look it up in Daf Kuf Gimel. So why did he want that? The Gemara says, why did Rebbe want that? He was dying. So the Gemara said that every week Rebbe used to come on Erev Shabbos Ben Hashmos. When the Shabbos started, every week he used to come back to his family. And Kiva Eger on that Gemara brings down that what did Rebbe do when he came back? It says he was dressed in his Shabbos begodim and he made Kiddush for his family. So Kiva Eger says from Sefer Chassidim. So in the Sefer Chassidim it is, how in the world could Rebbe make Kiddush for his family? The halacha is, once a person dies, he doesn't have any mitzvah to do mitzvahs. If he doesn't have a mitzvah to do mitzvahs, you need to be mechuyev v'dab. You have to be mechuyev in the mitzvah to be mitzvah somebody else. If you're not mechuyev in the mitzvah, you can be mitzvah somebody else. So how in the world was Rebbe mitzvah his family? Once he went up to Shemayim, if he comes back, what does it help? He's not a mechuyev b'mitzvahs. If he's not a mechuyev b'mitzvahs, he can't be mitzvah.
But if he's back, it's chayav mitzvahs.
So the same, the Kega brings. The Kega are different. Tzaddikim, even when they're dead, even when they're not alive anymore, they're like they're alive. So what do we know? That's it. That's all the Kega brings down. Tzaddikim, even when they're alive, even when they're dead, they're on such a high level that they're still considered mechuyev b'davar. So where do we find this idea, this concept? He's saying, where do we find this idea that tzaddikim, even when they're not alive anymore, they're like they're alive? So the Gemara says, in Mesechus Tainis, that hey, based on the pasuk on this passage, the Gemara says that Yaakov Avinu loy meis. Yaakov Avinu didn't die. What's the meaning Yaakov Avinu loy meis? The pasuk says that he did die. So the first time he died, it says that they chantu oisoi, and it says in the Torah that Yaakov Avinu did die. So the Gemara says, no, migrani derish. The Gemara brings a pasuk and it says, "Ma'azari b'chayim afu b'chayim." The same way his children are alive, so he was also alive. If you look at the hemshech of the Gemara is mavur that a person who's a tzaddik, big tzaddik, is able to live on through his children and all the talmidim that he has. So you see in the Gemara this idea, Yaakov Avinu, Yudei Shvatim, he's able to be alive when he's not alive. He's considered alive. So in this Nakuda that someone is on a very high level, like Yaakov Avinu, you find in the Gemara, Yudah Nasi, even when they're nifted, they still have this Nakuda in them that they consider Mechuyev B'davar, and they can be moitzi their family with Kiddush.